My nephew does this with me on the farm. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Love 30K's Stories. And I will bring for everyone my story. I never imagined that life would still have so many surprises ahead for me at this stage. It was just another typical day on the farm, blending in with all the others. The sun shone brightly, casting its warm rays across the fields, and a gentle breeze added to the peaceful atmosphere as I went about my daily chores. This farm has been my home for most of my life, especially after my husband passed away. It became my sanctuary. But today felt different. There was something in the air, a feeling I couldn't quite put my finger on. The scent of Lawson spread across the lake, and everything about it. If you're curious about what happens next, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support will help this channel grow and allow me to share more of my journey, the surprises life still brings, and the lessons learned along the way. Don't miss out on what's ahead. Join me in exploring this unexpected chapter of life. My name is Emma. I could never have dreamed that, at 58, life would still hold so many wonderful surprises for me. It was just an ordinary day on the farm, one of those that usually faded into the background. Yet there was a special warmth in the air, a subtle joy reminding me of how beautiful the simplest moments can be. The sun shone brilliantly in the clear blue sky, its golden rays dancing across the fields, making the dewdrops sparkle like tiny jewels. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh hay, soothing as I moved through my daily chores. This farm, my home for most of my life, became my sanctuary after my husband passed away, a place of peace and solace. But today felt different, filled with a warmth I couldn't quite explain. My nephew Brian had been visiting me, and his presence was a joyful blessing. He took on the heavy tasks easily, his kindness and care wrapping me in the sense of comfort I hadn't felt in years. He was in his early 30s, a strikingly handsome man with a strong, athletic build that radiated vitality. His broad shoulders and toned frame spoke of hard work and dedication, and there was an undeniable charm in his easy smile and the warmth in his eyes. Having him around was a joy, the companionship, the shared laughter, and the simple comfort of meals had eaten together. I hadn't realized how much I missed the presence of another person until he arrived. He was considerate and compassionate, always ensuring my well-being. That day we worked shoulder to shoulder in the barn, stacking hay bales and tending to the animals. The sun streamed through the wooden slats, casting a golden glow on his face. Sweat glistened on his brow, and his shirt clung to his muscular frame as he moved with effortless grace. There was a quiet confidence in his every action, a harmony with the work that mesmerized me. As he bent down to lift another bale, the strength in his movements captivated me. My heart fluttered unexpectedly, stirred by his presence in a way I hadn't felt in what seemed like a lifetime. An anxious smile formed on Papa's face as he looked towards the door. We took a break, sitting on the edge of the old wooden fence that gazed over the rolling fields. The sky was a masterpiece painted in stunning shades of pink, orange, and gold as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting its warm glow across the land. The gentle sway of the tall grass and the distant silhouette of trees made the scene feel almost otherworldly. Brian turned to me, his eyes soft and filled with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "You've done so much here, Aunt Emma," he said, his deep voice carrying a sincerity that made my cheeks flush. "I don't know how you do it, day in and day out." I smiled, feeling a little self-conscious under his gaze. "It's just life," I replied, brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "It's what I know." He leaned in slightly, his arm brushing against mine. The warmth of his skin sent a subtle shiver down my spine, and I suddenly became acutely aware of how close we were. His gaze lingered, deep and searching, and in that instant, something shifted between us. The way he gazed at me wasn't how a nephew typically looks at his aunt. It held a deeper intensity, something that sent my heart racing. The silence between us grew thick and heavy with unspoken words. My heart raced as I scrambled for words, anything to ease the tension, but the weight of the moment was overpowering, leaving me breathless, as though the very air had been taken from me. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. And then, if he had somehow read my thoughts, Brian gently placed his hand over mine. His touch was electric, sending waves of warmth through my body, igniting a fire deep within me. I could barely breathe. "Aunt Emma," he began, his voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. "I don't know how to say this, but I've been feeling something I can't ignore." I swallowed hard, my throat dry and tight. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, though my heart was pounding in my chest. His eyes locked with mine, intense and filled with emotions too raw to hide. "I know we're family, but I've been drawn to you in a way I can't explain. I think about you all the time, the way you laugh, the way you carry yourself. There's something about you, Emma. Something makes me feel things I've never felt before." I was frozen, speechless. How could this be happening? How could my nephew, this young, vibrant man, be saying these things to me? And yet, as I gazed into his eyes, I knew it wasn't just him. I had been fighting the same feelings, pushing them down, trying to ignore them. But now they bubbled up to the surface, undeniable and impossible to contain. Brian, I don't know what to say," I stammered, my mind spinning with confusion and desire. "You don't have to say anything," he replied softly, his voice full of sincerity. "I just wanted you to know how I feel. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to tell you." For a long, breathless moment, we sat there in silence, his hand still resting on mine, and the world around us seemed to fade away. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky darkened into deep shades of purple and blue, and the only sound was the soft rustle of the wind through the trees. The air was fresh and sharp, yet my heart pounded, and my mind whirled with a torrent of emotions. There were still countless questions, so much left unspoken, but at that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was this moment, this new and unexpected chapter in my life. When Brian's hand found mine once again, a surge of excitement rushed through me. At that very moment, I understood that whatever lay ahead, we would confront it side by side. The days that followed felt almost surreal. The outside world faded into the background, leaving only two of us, wrapped in a cocoon of unspoken emotions. Neither of us could fully grasp what was happening, but we both sensed the overwhelming gravity of the moment. Brian continued with the daily chores, but now every touch and glance carried an undeniable tension. I could not escape. It was as if we were walking on the edge of something equally dangerous and exhilarating. A thrilling uncertainty made my pulse quicken. "Alfred?" "Made you say nothing?" One afternoon, we were working under the old apple trees on the far side of the farm, gathering the last of the season's fruit. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the fields. Brian stood beside me, his arms full of apples, his shirt clinging to his body from the warmth of the sun. I caught myself watching him, and for a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us was thick, charged with an undeniable tension, a desire simmering beneath the surface. "Emma," he said softly, stepping closer, his voice low and rough. I whispered, "I can't stop thinking about you, about us." In my voice barely above a breath, he met my gaze. "This is insane. We shouldn't feel this way." His eyes dark with emotion. "But we do," he murmured, "and I don't want to fight it anymore." Before I could respond, Brian closed the small distance between us. gently cupping my face in his hands. He leaned in, his lips brushing mine in the softest, most tentative kiss, like a question waiting to be answered. A wave of warmth spread through me, and in that moment, I forgot everything. Forgot the reasons we should not, erased all the uncertainties, everything except the feel of his lips on mine. The kiss deepened as his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, and I let myself be held by him. My hand slid up to his shoulders, feeling the strength in his body, and I kissed him back with a passion I hadn't known I still possessed. His lips were soft, warm, and tasted faintly of the apples we'd been picking. I wanted to tell him everything would be okay, that it was all right to feel what we felt. I felt like I was melting into him, every touch, every movement, sending electric shivers down my spine. We only separated when we were breathless, standing side by side, our hearts racing. I gazed up at him, my mind reeling from the overwhelming reality of what had just occurred. But I looked into his eyes. I realized I didn't feel guilty or ashamed. I felt more alive than I had in years. I whispered, "I don't want to stop," surprising even myself with the raw intensity of my words. Brian's gaze softened and he smiled at me in a way that made my heart skip the beat. "Neither do I," he replied, his voice low with longing. He leaned in once more, pressing his lips to mine in a kiss that had been more urgent and intense. His hands roamed down my back, pulling me flush against him. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, and my fingers tangled in his hair as our kiss deepened, igniting something inside me I couldn't control. The world around us seemed to fade away, until there was only him, only this moment. Time seemed to stand still as we stood in the golden light of the late afternoon, kissing as though nothing else mattered. His kisses were a mix of tenderness and raw hunger, as if he couldn't get enough of me, and I found myself responding with equal passion. Every time our lips met, it felt like a spark igniting inside me, something long buried coming to life once more. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath my cheek. His arms tightened around me, pulling me closer, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly safe, wrapped in the warmth of his embrace. It was as if the world had paused, and I could finally breathe again, fully alive. That evening, we sat together on the front steps, watching the sun slowly dip below the horizon, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. Brian's arm was draped casually over my shoulders, his fingers tracing soft circles on my skin. I nestled against him, resting my head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath as we savored the quiet serenity. I said softly, "I don't know what the future holds," breaking the stillness, "but I know that I don't want to face it without you." Brian turned toward me, his eyes filled with warmth and love. He reached up gently, tilting my chin so our eyes met, his thumb brushing lightly over my bottom lip, sending a shiver through me. He murmured, "I feel the same way," his voice low and intimate. "I don't care about what anyone thinks. I just want to be with you." Without waiting for a response, he pulled me closer, his presence filling me with a sense of happiness I hadn't known in years. He kissed me again, softly at first, then deeper, his lips moving against mine in a slow, sensual rhythm that made my heart race. His hand slid up to cradle the back of my head, gently holding me in place as his mouth explored mine. The kiss grew more passionate, more insistent, and I found myself responding eagerly, pressing closer to him, wanting more. His kisses were intoxicating, everyone sending waves of warmth through my body. I felt his hand slide down my arm, his fingers brushing lightly against my skin, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake. His touch was gentle, yet purposeful, and with each lingering caress, I knew there was no turning back now. We were tangled in this moment, each movement more intimate than the last, the world around us fading as we became lost in each other's embrace. We had crossed a line, but instead of fear, it thrilled me. As the night went on, we found ourselves tangled in each other's arms again, this time with no hesitation, no second guessing. We kissed like we had all the time in the world, slow and deep, savoring every moment, every touch. His hands moved over me, exploring, caressing, and I could feel the heat building between us with each passing second. We spent the night together, wrapped in each other's warmth, our kisses growing softer, more languid. As the hours slipped by every time our lips met, it felt like we were sharing something deeper that went beyond words. His kisses told me everything I needed to know, that he wanted me. He cared for me, and this wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was real, and it was ours. In the quiet of the night, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness, as if nothing else in the world mattered except us. As we lay there, our bodies intertwined, Brian's lips gently met mine again, a soft, lingering kiss that felt like a vow. His hand gently cupped my face, his thumb brushing over my cheek as he kissed me tenderly, savoring every second. I kissed him back with equal tenderness, a deep sense of peace enveloping me. "I'm glad we found each other," I whispered against his lips, my fingers tracing a line of his jaw. Brian smiled, his forehead resting against mine. "Me too, Emma. More than you know." For the rest of the night, we held each other close, exchanging soft kisses and sharing quiet moments in the warmth of my bed. Every touch, every kiss, felt like a reassurance that this was right, that we had found something rare and beautiful. As I drifted into sleep in his arms, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, hand in hand, filled with a happiness I never thought possible. The following days on the farm felt like something out of a dream. We continued our work, but now every moment was filled with subtle touches, shared smiles, and stolen kisses. Each time Brian passed, his hand would brush mine, or he'd steal a quick kiss when no one was watching. The air between us was charged with a quiet passion, simmering beneath the surface. It was as if the world had faded away, and all that mattered was these small, joyful moments we shared, making everything feel so right and full of happiness. One evening, after a long day of work, we decided to stroll through the fields as the sun set. The cool breeze rustled the tall grass around us, and the sky was painted in vibrant hues of pink and orange. We walked hand in hand, the silence between us comfortable, filled with a deep understanding that didn't need words. As we reached the top of the hill, Brian stopped, pulling me close. His arms wrapped around my waist, and he leaned in, capturing my lips in a slow, lingering kiss. The warmth of his body pressed against mine, the softness of his lips, and the way his hands gently cradled my face were all perfect. Time seemed to stand still as we kissed, surrounded by the peaceful beauty of the fields, the world fading away with every heartbeat. Beneath the fading light, with the rest of the world melting away, he whispered against my lips, "I love you," his voice full of emotion. Tears welled in my eyes as I kissed him back, my heart swelling with happiness. "I love you too, Brian," I whispered in return. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, kissing under the setting sun, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The world might not have understood us, but we had discovered a connection, a bond worth cherishing. In that moment, I realized that love, true love, was all that mattered, and nothing else could compare to this feeling of pure happiness. We returned to the farm that night, and Brian's lips lingered on mine, the warmth of his embrace making everything else fade away. At that moment, The world outside didn't exist. It was just the two of us, wrapped up in each other, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. His hands caressed my back, pulling me even closer as we stood there, kissing slowly, deeply, without hesitation. The passion between us simmered beneath the surface, ready to spill over. Brian whispered, "I don't want this night to end," his voice low and full of desire as he gazed into my eyes. I felt the same. The connection we shared was undeniable, and I wanted nothing more than to let the night unfold without boundaries and to stay lost in this perfect moment. Every touch and kiss filled me with a happiness I never knew I could feel. My heart was pounding in my veins, and I could feel the pull between us growing stronger with each passing second. "Then don't let it," I whispered back, my voice soft but filled with meaning. Brian's gaze darkened with emotion, and without another word he took my hand and led me back to the farmhouse. The walk felt long, every step charged with a growing sense of anticipation. Our hands intertwined, our bodies moving in perfect sync. By the time we reached the front door, the night had fully settled in, the stars twinkling above us. The quiet of the farm only heightened the intimacy between us, as if the world had faded away, leaving only the two of us, connected by an unspoken bond, ready to embrace what was to come. Sitting on the sofa, with his arm covering my waist, we chatted about none of the things that had separated us, like intimacy and peace. Inside, Brian gently closed the door behind us, turning to face me with an intensity in his eyes that spoke volumes. There was something unspoken in the look he gave me, something raw, deep, and full of affection. He stepped forward, cupping my face in his hands, and kissed me softly at first, then more urgently, as if his kisses were promises, confessions of everything he could not say. Inside my mind, Brian gently closed the door behind us, and we stood for a moment, calm. We stumbled into the bedroom, our lips never parting, our bodies pressed together, the urgency between us growing with every passing second. Brian's hands roamed over my body, his touch sending shivers through me, awakening feelings I hadn't felt in so long. His lips trailed down my neck, his breath warm against my skin, and I let out a soft sigh as the heat between us intensified. Clothes were discarded in a blur, and soon we were tangled in each other, skin against skin. The world outside forgotten, the world outside forgotten. And I responded in kind, my hands exploring the contours of his body. It was as if every barrier between us had disappeared, and we were free to lose ourselves in the moment, swept away by the fire that burned between us. Money pressed his thumb against my lips. Full of desire, his hands traced the curves of my body with a reverence that sent tremors through me. He kissed me deeply, his mouth moving in perfect harmony with mine, each kiss igniting something within me, a flame that had long been dormant. I had forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, to be loved so completely. We moved together as if we had done this 1,000 times before, our bodies finding a natural rhythm, our breaths becoming shallow as we lost ourselves in each other. His hands gripped my hips, pulling me closer, and I let out a soft moan as we became one, the world fading into nothing but sensation. It was slow at first, tender, as if we were savoring every moment, every touch, but soon it grew more urgent, more intense, driven by a need neither of us could control. The night stretched on, and we spent it wrapped in each other, exploring, touching, kissing, doing everything a couple does when they're completely lost in the moment, in each other. With each touch and every kiss, we drifted further into each other, and nothing else mattered but the bond we shared. And in the heat of the moment, Brian's whispered words of affection echoed in my mind, his breath warm against my skin. He spoke with such intensity, telling me how much he wanted me and how deeply he cared for me. and I could feel my heart swell as I echoed the same words, my voice trembling with emotion. I admitted just how completely I had fallen for him. We made love in a way that felt eternal, as if nothing else in the world mattered but this moment, this connection. It was passionate, raw, yet tender, and filled with love. Every kiss and every caress reminded me that we had found something extraordinary, something pure, and I cherished each second of it. Hours slipped by, but it felt like mere moments. Eventually we lay there, tangled in the sheets, our bodies pressed close together. His arm was wrapped around me, and I rested my head against his chest. The rhythm of his breathing was steady and calming, and I felt a profound sense of peace and contentment wash over me. In that serene, intimate moment, I understood I had found something rare and beautiful that would stay with me for eternity. The night had been everything I didn't know I was missing. I had never imagined I'd feel this way again. I whispered, tracing slow, lazy circles on Brian's skin with my fingertips, savoring the warmth and the closeness. He placed a tender kiss on said quietly. "Neither did I," his voice thick with feeling. "But I'm so glad we found each other." His words made my heart swell with happiness, and I couldn't help but smile. I looked up at him, our eyes meeting in the soft, dim light of the room. At that moment, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together. There was no denying the bond we had forged, no going back from what we had shared. It was real, and it was ours. As the night deepened, we drifted off to sleep, entwined in each other's arms. The warmth of his body wrapped me in safety and comfort, his soft breathing lulling me into the most peaceful rest I'd known in years. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in so long, I didn't fear it. I had found something beautiful, something I never expected in Brian's love, and it had rekindled a part of me I thought I had lost forever. Together, we were unstoppable.